America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This sounds different every time.
Any agenda additions? All right, don't see any. Citizens' comments. Citizens who wish to address the commission, fill out a comment card and forward it to the president or the clerk of the commission. Comments by any citizen will be limited to 3 minutes. I've got 2 cards. Got Michael Hall. Step up and give your comments, please. Give your name and address.
Vice President Thibodeau, my name is Michael Hall.
Get in front of the mic. Yeah.
I'm a resident of Keithville, 3232 Bluebird, Keithville. Subdivision is the Southern Forest Acre subdivision. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association, and we are here today with some other constituents of mine, neighbors. We're trying to get some help on the roads. We've talked to District 11, Jim Smith, and he has been trying to guide us toward the direction of what they call a 60-40%. The parish pays 60, the neighbors pay 40, but we're not getting any understanding on the 40%. Why is it we have to pay 40%, but we do pay parish taxes? And he said that there was a law against them not paving the parish roads. But I asked him, I said, well, what was the law? What is the law? And he didn't know what the law was, what was keeping them from paving. But the problem that we have is that us not being able to build those roads or to not concrete pave, to blacktop them, we're stopping the growth of our community. People are coming down and want to buy into the community, but we're seeing undeveloped roads. And I do have a couple of pictures that I want you to see of just what the road, the undeveloped, when I say undeveloped, I mean like,
You got a copy of this? ID? You're asking ID?
I don't know. Yeah. This road is actually one of the roads that's called Mulberry Lane. This is the road, approximately the 3rd road from the Keithville-Kingston main road that comes into the area. This road comes about, I'll say about 200 feet, and it just stops. When we're looking from here, we're looking from the south side going toward the north, but that road is supposed to be a paved road. But there's no access, no way anyone can access a road. And we're trying to figure out why can't we get them blacktop like the other 2 roads. Well, we have, Commissioner, we have Keithville-Kingston is the main road that comes in off of Mansfield Road. Then you got Redbird and Bluebird that comes into our community. After those 2 roads, now those 2 roads are paved coming into the community. I got 4 roads behind that: Mulberry, Mistletoe, Orange Blossom, and Hummingbird. That looks like this. That's wilderness. And here, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years, someone came in and put a street sign that said private drive. Where did that come from? We don't know why they're called private drive, so we was asking Mr. Smith to try to give us some understanding why we can't get these roads paved so our community can continue to grow.
Did the original developer put in the original roads?
Yes.
Who was that?
What's the name? Stennett. I understand it's
And were they ever dedicated to the parish? And were they built to parish specifications?
Now, at one time, my understanding, Mr. Thibodeau, those roads were parish roads. They were built to parish specification, but this was way back 20 years ago. The covers were in the roads about 5 or 10 years after the roads were developed. Someone came, and the parish came, they took the covers out. They never did go back and maintain the roads, build them back up, but those roads were at one time kept up by the parish.
Mr. Wilson, would you and Mr. Glass see if you can get some answers from Mr. Hall? Let him know where, at least where it stands as far as we're concerned.
So we will.
Okay.
And I do have one of my neighbors that want to speak.
Okay, I've got
It's in Caddo Parish.
It is.
Fidel Scott.
to the members of the Caddo Parish Commission, and to my commissioner, Mr. Jim Smith of District 11. I stand before you this afternoon.
Excuse me, Ms. Scott, can you give us your name and your address, please?
My name is Friedel Scott. I live at 3214 Mulberry Lane, Peakville.
All right, thank you.
As I was saying, I stand before you this afternoon with now 3 issues for your consideration. Issue number 1, and that issue is my husband and I live on Mulberry Lane in the subdivision of Southern Forest Acres. As I stated, it is located in Keithville, where the parish has brought 5 roads up to code with good black tops. And recently, a 5th road was completed by the parish. And yet the road where I live, along with 2 other roads, remain dirt roads. And I pay almost $3,000 a year in property taxes. And I feel that I am looked over. Whoever made the mistake that Vice President mentioned a few minutes ago is not my fault. If we had known that before now, or before we built the house, we would not have built in that subdivision. So I ask you to not penalize us for someone else's mistake. My second issue is, oh, and by the way, it seems a little funny, is that those 5 roads, Mulberry Lane, Mistletoe, and Orange Blossom, are sandwiched in between those 5 roads. So it amazes me how a 5th road can be blacktop and overlook 3 other roads when we too are paying taxes. But as I stated, my final issue in my closing, I offer you the words of Commissioner Jim Smith. His words to us at our last neighborhood meeting were, and I quote, "A community cannot grow without roads and water." I want to see your community grow. You have nice homes and nice lawns. Your property is well kept. This speaks well of you in that community. End of quote. We who live in the Southern Forest Acres subdivision give a shout out to that statement from our commissioner, because we too want our community to grow. But we know it will not grow because a few weeks ago a young man inquired of us about plans to build in the community. But when he found out about the roads, he decided to go elsewhere. Commissioners, this is not right. We need roads. Our nice homes, our nice lawns, and our roads begin with you. You and only you have the power to turn this dream into a reality. I ask you today to turn the page and give us roads. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Ms. Scott, let me ask you one question. The roads that were blacktopped, were they in your subdivision or were they outside
They're
of it?
in the subdivision.
So there are roads in your subdivision that were blacktopped by the parish?
Right, and Hummingbird was blacktop, I think, last year.
Okay, well, I'll ask
There's logical reason for that.
Mr. Wilson to get with you also on the same subject. Okay. Mr. Dominic?
A lot of the questions I was going to ask, you've answered, but this is, what she has is, a big problem that we have in the northern part of the parish too. The 60/40 program is a wonderful program, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, is there any way we can put something on our website about this? Because I get a call once a month, and I have to explain this, and I'm basically telling everybody, look, I don't know everything, you need to talk to Robert Glass, and then they're calling him, and they're making different calls. If there was something on a website, because, they have to, I got to tell them you got to get a petition, and I can't remember how many, is it 65, 70%? If we had something on there, or even the petition giving information of what the 60/40 program would, it could really help. I could click on it and tell them how to get there. So that's just one of my suggestions about the 60/40 program. And I guess these are private roads. It makes it difficult. Maybe we need to look at something about these people are building subdivisions in the future. Somehow or another notifying these people, because if they build a subdivision and they don't build the road up to the parish standards, 10 or 15 years the road gets deteriorated and it gets in a really bad situation. And I know we do have some ordinances as far as the plats and things like that. So
yeah, we just revised the ordinance about 5 years ago to specify that that information is on the plat, that those roads are designated private roads.
yes,
Unless the developer builds a road to parish standards, that road is not a parish road.
that is correct. You're correct.
We don't take it in, because before we take it in, we will have to be the parish standard, and we'll have to go back and construct a road that meet engineering approved standards.
You are correct.
But the 60/40 provision is spelled out in state law, but we'll be glad to put that on the website
Okay.
for future information. But we will talk to these citizens that came today before you and explain to them where we are with this.
While some of the roads are blacktop, while some of them were not.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, just parenthetically, Commissioners, about 5 years ago, that program used to be 40/60.
That's correct. You're right.
And we turned that around to encourage use by the citizenry of the parish, because we had about 22 miles of dirt roads still left in the parish, but mostly on private roads. So we highly encourage the use of that program, but the road had to be built to certain standards, otherwise we will have to invest a lot of money to get them up to standards if they're not built that way to begin with.
All right. Thank you. Understood that.
Okay. Next, we have visitors.
I had one.
You're not up there.
I thought it was. Put that on the side. Mr. Wilson,
Yes, sir.
is it any way
No, I don't have
that,
anybody.
I know we can't force anybody to do anything, but this is not the only problem in the parish similar to this. Windermere has same issues, where it's in the parish and the roads were built by a developer, now they're deteriorating. Is it any way that we can either force a developer or either get some information out to, well, I guess before the property is developed, before the homes are built? I'm just trying to see what we can we do on the front end, because every time this happens, it always comes to us on the back end, and people have built nice homes and, raising families, and all of a sudden, the roads deteriorate, and then we have to say, well, look, we can't do anything with them because the developer didn't build them to parish standard. Can we make a developer build them to parish standard?
Well, when about 6 years ago, Mr. Pearson, when we revised our ordinances that address subdivisions,
Yeah.
we had all the builders in the room,
Right.
and we informed them of this change, that every lot and a non-road would be platted on the plat as a private drive unless they meet the engineering standards, so that we can inspect those roads from the start of the subdivision plat. And a lot of them said, no, this is going to be a private road, because they didn't want to invest the money in the road. And we could not make them, but we recorded on the plat in the courthouse that that's a private road, a private drive, and is not a designated parish road.
But Mr. Pearson, to answer your, if you're asking if the commission could impose such a requirement, it would take an amendment to the subdivision regulations, but it's something that, y'all could require all
New development.
all new developments of residential subdivisions, whatever, to have the internal roads built to parish standards. I think you could do that.
I think that's something that perhaps we ought to look to doing, because it always happens years 10, 12 years or 5 or 6 years or something after the subdivision is developed, then the roads begin to deteriorate, then all of a sudden it's, well, you all not keeping up the road. And it's always on the back end, and I was just wondering, and I think that's something the commission, maybe at some point ought to look at. I don't know how it would affect developers wanting to do business, but certainly it would help property owners and homeowners to not have to face this kind of issue that these people are facing.
I guess, Mr. Pearson, the issue is, can we compel someone to do a certain thing with private property? And as long as it's in their possession, it's private property. It's not our property to say one way or the other, unless they so designate that, and then we have prescribed measurements we have to take to become an official parish adopted road where you would put forth an ordinance to bring it in. But prior to that, it's private. And the argument is, how do you compel a private person to do something different with their land?
Now, I understand about a road that's built to get to a road, to get to a house.
Yes, sir.
But I was talking about, I guess it's basically the same, I guess, subdivision roads. When you build a subdivision and you build roads in that subdivision, I would think, well, that maybe somehow we could say, well, look, you guys are going to have to build these roads subject to parish code. Maybe we can look into it at some point and see if that's something we can do. Thank you, Mr.
All right, got Mr. Smith. Everything that you heard from Mr. Hall and Ms. Scott is absolutely true. They have beautiful homes. It is an extremely well-kept area. The lawns are gorgeous, mowed to perfection and kept to perfection. I think it was Ms. Scott about a month before I ran for election for the full term last year that I met with Mr. and Ms. Scott, and matter of fact went to their home several times, and they came to my office. And then I believe Mr. Glass came down and we had a meeting of some of the people in the subdivision explaining the 60-40 rule at that time. I believe, is that correct, Mr. Glass? And pretty much went through the 60-40 plan, and I understand why the taxpayers don't necessarily like that. They moved in there, it's a nice neighborhood, they thought they could get their roads paved, but they're not paved, and then the 60-40 rule is a problem. But it is an issue that we need to solve. It's an older subdivision, although they're mostly brand new homes there. Ms. Scott's right. If we want our parish to grow, we have to solve this problem. And we do have to follow the laws as they are today, which I explained to Mr. Hall and his other group at the meeting. Naturally, I'm like any other commissioner. I want all the roads paved. I want people to come to District 11 and move in like they're already moving in. But we have to work together to solve it with them and of course, by the law. Anyway, thank you.
Mr. Cox.
Is Stephen still here with the MPC?
Yes.
Stephen, when a developer comes to y'all within that 5-mile radius, and I'm assuming Bluebird and all that is in the 5-mile radius of the MPC, don't y'all have stipulations too, that when they bring that plat, they bring the diagram of the subdivision that they're going to build, it has to meet certain specs when in y'all's department first?
It does, and a lot of it depends on a lot of different things. When you're looking at a development, and in many cases when you're dealing with the RA designation, we're dealing strictly with the ordinance as it is written. As the ordinance is written, there's not a provision that requires it to meet that parish standard. They can have a private road. Now, what we did a few years ago is we changed if you remember this, we changed the road width from going down up to right-of-way width down to 50 feet to 60 feet. The idea for that was that we would at least get a right-of-way to a width that could be worked with if at some point in the future, because this happens quite often with people in the city as well, want to be brought into the system, that they at least have the physical width in order to make it work. But developers often choose to go with a lesser standard road and make their development more affordable, or maybe more profitable, one of the two, or both. If it's a PUD, that is ordinance relief exchanged for other things. It's a tougher standard to meet, but still is often done with private streets. And we can invoke more things on a PUD than we can on a standard subdivision. But if they're not changing zoning and they're just coming in with a subdivision only, then we don't have as many things that we can put together on the table to negotiate. We're just looking at whether does this meet standard or not? Does it meet the width standard? And if they say it's a private street, well, we say, well, you're going to have to designate that as a common lot, and you're going to have to give that a name, and that's as far as we go with that right now. Now, if the ordinance has changed, well, obviously we'd follow those ordinances.
Okay. I would suggest that like everybody's already said, we need to address this. We need to work with Stephen and MPC as well when you do something like this, simply because they look at anything before we ever see it. So it's to their benefit too that they work with us.
With the exception of the rural areas. And there are points within
5 mile radius.
Well, Keithville, I don't know if this is in the NPC or not.
That's in the MPC.
Okay. But as you heard, they don't force contractors to make a private road a public road, because they got places like Squirrel Point. So for example, they want us to bring it into the parish, but we go out there, nice homes on the lake, it's a private drive. When we talked to them about making it a standard road, they said, no, we don't want that, because they have the gators as well. So they use parish funds to update that road to a parish acceptable road, requires it to be open, and they said, no, they walked away from the deal.
Well, when you have a subdivision like this gentleman was talking about, Mr. Smith, Mr. Thibodeau, we all have rural areas, and if we want those areas to grow like North Caddo, we are in hopes right now that things come together and we bring in subdivisions in North. But to do that, I think we need to get this done and something on the books to protect not only them, but go back and protect the citizens that already have something like that. Now, it's going to be tough, I'll be honest with you, because of the developer and I don't know how long y'all have lived there, but there has to be something that we can tell the developers, hey, look, 15 years down the road, if you want to build a private road, you're going to build it to parish specs, simply because 15 years down the road, you're gone, and the residents are left holding the bag on a road that's no good. So, thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, I do think that we do need to make some type of revision to that. One of the things on the front side, I know Woody, you said that it is private property as the developer has it, but once that property is designated as residential and they're going to put roads in there and it's outside city limits, we should have some type of minimum standards. And if it's not going to meet a minimum standard, then it should be, to me, it should be a gated community, and the people that stay in that particular area know that it's a gated community, and then they would have to maintain the roads and everything else. Because the way it sits now, you see a lot in a neighborhood for sale, and they go in and they might decide to buy the lot, but then find out that they won't develop the roads. Then you're stuck with this lot that nobody else would buy, and then you build a house, still go forward and build a house hoping that one day the parish would decide to put the road in, and it never happens. So it's kind of, need to have something that would educate the public to know that if you move out into a rural neighborhood area and the roads are not done, then there's this 60-40 program that nobody really knows about. So we just need to do something to try to change that up a little bit.
It's certainly our desire to get rid of all dirt roads throughout the parish, right, where possible. But that comes with a cost as well.
Right.
But we will try to do our best to educate the public a little bit better by using our website and perhaps answering the questions that were brought before you today as to the legalities of what's being asked.
Okay. Thank you.
Good day. We've got several problems here, really. And it goes back to one that we debated the last couple of years, and that is, do we want to be so big brother-ish as to have parish-wide zoning? And we didn't want to do that as far as the master plan is concerned, not to any big extent. So after you get with the people, I just like when you get your information, an update. I want to know how long the subdivision was there, whether it was in the 5-mile boundary of the MPC or 3-mile, whatever it was at the time. It may not have been, whether the road has been abandoned or if the parish ever had ownership or possession of it. These are things we need to know. So we have two problems here, that this is going to continue as the parish grows, and hopefully the parish will grow. That people will build subdivisions and then later on need improvements as they become closer to the city and realize that the minimum standards weren't met. So how do we take care of this from happening in the future? That's one question. The other question is, how do we go ahead and deal with what's already happened in a reasonable manner as best we can? Like the situation that these people find themselves in their particular subdivision. And there's not easy answers to either one of those. So we've got to work on it on a twofold part. What Lyndon said, there's some truth in it. Before we pass ordinances to restrict road construction throughout the parish and get that intrusive, then we may want to look at that and study that a lot, because that basically is parish-wide zoning, basically, but that's going to lead to other things. And I think people in the rural areas go out there, for the most part, to be left alone, and I don't blame them. But then they do need some sort of protection, so we have to decide what we're going to do. I think some of the easier things may be to look at something concerning all new developments of rural subdivisions, that it has to, we can probably pass an ordinance that requires all land developers, real estate companies, everyone to fully disclose, whether they're selling lots or homes or anything, that, what the situation is, that this is out of MPC's jurisdiction or within the 5-mile jurisdiction, and the roads or these are the parish's standards. This is what you need to look for. Do not buy the lot or do not invest in property unless you think these standards are going to be, just give them the information, because people don't know. And then 15, 20 years later, after it's happened, then it's a problem. And these good people didn't realize what they signed up for when they signed up for it. So it's not an easy problem. It's going to be complex. But so we have two things. Like I said, how do we prevent this in the future, or at least get the public aware of what's going on so they can make the best informed decision when they're buying rural property or developing rural real estate, and how do we go ahead and take care of the current problems as best we can, people that are falling through the cracks. I don't know the answer to those. It's going to take a lot of study. That's all. Thank you.
Dominic, I think that John, or Commissioner Escaday, pretty much said a lot that makes a lot of sense. Years ago, you didn't have to put on the plat, the private road. So you go out there, you say, oh, it's a nice neighborhood, and you bought a road, you bought a house, you bought it for X amount of dollars, but you weren't paying the parish road because it wasn't a parish road. You may have paid $100,000, where if it was a parish road, you may have to pay $115,000 because the subdivision developer would have had to bring it up to code already. We have since curtailed or changed some of those rules, and now say the plat has to say it's a private road. There may need to be some other things that could be done, like Commissioner Escaday is saying, to prevent this from the future. But you're right, you've got a future problem and you got a problem in the past. But I don't know if we need to be going out there making a bunch of ordinances saying, that in the rural areas you got to do this, 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 this. But I do think that people need to be made aware of it. They're going to buy a house out in one of these subdivisions, whether it's an SP30 road, and a lot of them are doing this, that this is not a parish road and it's going to stay like it, and the parish is not going to do anything for it. So I think it's one of those things that does need to be looked at a little bit. That's all I got to say. Hopefully we can move on to the next issue at this time.
All right, our next issue is our visitors. First, we have Southern University Shreveport representative give a presentation regarding the Assets for Independence Project, homeownership, education, and entrepreneurship. Mr. Johnson. And just for the sake of full disclosure, I believe this, and you tell me if I'm incorrect, I believe in our committee we voted, in the NGO committee, this was voted not to be funded. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vice President Thibodeau, and thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for inviting us and to discuss and share with you why we presented such a proposal to this body and why.
Give us your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darren Dixon. I'm with Southern University, and here with Bridget Powell, who's our coordinator for this program. But thank you for allowing us to come, even though, and we did here, in the interest of full disclosure, that you all did vote it down in your committee meeting on Friday. But we came still because we're kind of passionate about what we do and to show the perseverance by why we feel that it's necessary that maybe you reconsider your vote if that's possible and that's procedurally correct on Friday to support this program. The Access to Independence program is just that. It's a means or mechanism to provide independence. There are a lot of people that are low income that try to build wealth, and the three ways that we support them to build wealth are through education, through business development, and through home ownership. To give folk a sense of pride, to give them a sense of self-worth, and to give them the capacity to build something for themselves or pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, which we so much support in this country. But Ms. Powell is going to come in to kind of give you the details of the program and to explain to you further why we think it's important. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, I'm Bridget Powell with Southern University. I'm the coordinator of housing programs and services for Southern, and just want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come in and speak to you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And like Mr. Dixon said, we do understand that the project was voted against in your committee meeting. However, we are asking that you reconsider. We are very passionate about this program. It is a great opportunity. A lot of the programs that are out there today for citizens, for home ownership, small business, etc., they're handouts. And this program is not that type of program. It's a program that's designed to help someone who's eager to help themselves. And for example, with our home ownership program, if they are willing to get in there and do the work, save the money, they can save up to $1,000. They do home ownership classes, financial education classes. They do one-on-one credit counseling, home ownership counseling. They really put in the work. And if they are that dedicated to put in the effort and save the funds, then we do a 3-to-1 match, give them $3,000 towards the acquisition of that asset. And the same with the education and the small business components. So we are dedicated to this program, and we are asking the Caddo Parish Commission to partner with us in this program and to help us help Caddo Parish residents to succeed and break that generational cycle of my mom, my dad, they didn't own a home, they didn't have much, so I'm just going to continue in that same pattern. This helps families break those patterns, those cycles of poverty and low to moderate income. This brings them up to another step, and they can see, well, if my parents did it, then I can do it. And it's once again, it's like Mr. Dixon said, it's Assets for Independence, which says it all. We're here to help citizens gain their independence through this program.
Okay.
Thank you
very much. Mr. Johnson, I believe you've got another guest.
Yes, do Southern CDC, Southern University CDC.
I believe this one was voted down by the committee. Is that correct, or did we just lower the amount of money?
Here.
Which one is that?
That one was voted down as well. That one was voted down as well.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Major Brock, and I'm from Southern University in Shreveport, Louisiana. We're located in the Martin Luther King area. I come before you today because I think when you reviewed the proposal had been written prior to some things happening on campus that would probably add a little substance to the proposal and give a little bit more clarity as to what its purpose was. Southern University currently has about $25 million worth of facilities and buildings out in the Martin Luther King area. We bring somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 people out on that campus each day. And what they decided to do was create a community development corporation because they felt that they should enhance the communities surrounding the institution. And they thought that the current developments out there did not appear to be of the quality. The products and services were not of the quality to attract persons to come to that area and make it into this collegiate community that we were looking to develop. So we brought some master planners on board, primarily looking at the Cooper Road or the Martin Luther King area just adjacent to the university. We're looking at KCS, and we partnership with KCS to get some property along the Harry Huckabee Carter. And we're thinking that only a mile and a half down the road, here's this park sitting there. And we know that we are significantly one of the most advanced community colleges in workforce development because we've created a number of accelerated pathways for GED, people without the GED, to go straight into a certified capacity in a high-demand job in Region 7, which encompasses Caddo and Parish. We have 100 kids going through that kind of project called Project Success. We have another 50 kids playing, or young adults really playing for a program that's referred to as Work Ready Youth. We dubbed it Star Academy. And what it's designed to do is to get people, adults, who are not educated, whether without a GED or without a high school diploma, to come into a college, to actually enroll in college, and to actually get the GED in the process, but they're going into a pathway that's designed to put them in a high-demand job in Region 7. So we're thinking that we're doing a lot of that. We had graduated somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 allied health students each year, 1,300 workers, incumbent workers we train each year. We go out to employers and we bring them in and we enhance their current workforce so that they can continue to grow on that job. We see our capacity out there in that Martin Luther King area as helping that community grow, and we think our branding is workforce development. And we think the park can be a legitimate added resource to that workforce development strategy and could do something to North Shreveport. Because North Shreveport we see is kind of rural in a sense, and leading up that corridor from the loop all the way up to Roy Road, we see that as an area that we need to concentrate on. And so what we wanted to do was to bring the development park into our master planning. And I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 160,000 on that proposal, and now we're seeing there's between 25 and 30,000 just to supplement our current master plan to allow them to look at the park as a resource for our own development and development of North Shreveport area. So that's a difference. That's a significant difference from what you reviewed the other day, and it encompasses a great deal more than what I think that proposal covered. So that's kind of what we wanted to add.
Johnson?
Well, one of the reasons I invited Southern University and Southern University CDC to the meeting, which was a long time ago before we actually voted on our subcommittee. I wanted this information to come before all of the commissioners so they can see how viable these programs could be in the North Shreveport area. And we had the meeting Friday, which was voted down. But still, it was still viable information that I think that all the commissioners need to know about, just in case these pop up again.
I guess one of the things I want to add, Commissioner Johnson, I appreciate you inviting us, is that somebody may ask the question, what has the CDC done since it's been developed? Well, currently it's developing an administrative facility just from the a David Range administrative facility across the street from the university. We bring 4 new jobs into the area and create a greater capacity for medical services in an underutilized area, a medically underutilized area. We've also developed a relationship with KCS where we have several properties along the Harry Huckabee Carter that we're thinking about doing a fresh food groceries. That's a food desert. By no stretch of the imagination, the people on the more affluent people who live on the North Lake Shore or the Martin Luther King extension, whichever you want to call it, they don't have access to fresh foods either. Nor do the people in the Martin Luther King area that lives around the university. They have to go all the way to North Market. Now, we realize North Market is a commercial center. It has somewhere in the neighborhood of 48,000 cars passing in that intersection
on a daily basis, but believe it or not, that's over 12,000 cars coming down the Harry Huckabee corridor. So we think that that's a viable opportunity for us to create an engine, an economic engine, in that piece that leads out to North Shreveport through Blanchard and on out in the Roy Road area. So we think it's a 25,000, 30,000, a small investment to get a master plan that encompasses all of this for the community. We talked about some of the benefits. There are plenty of studies out to show that workforce development is an added value for a community. Increased taxes, increased consumerism, a better responsive community, a better responsive citizenry. It's just an enormous amount of return that a community gets when it invests in workforce development, and that's what we do.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Commissioner Johnson, I believe you got a third. Yes, Reverend Evans.
Major used to be.
Oh, this is your major.
Years ago.
Vice President, Commissioners, my name is Dennis R. Everett Sr., pastor of Lake Bethlehem Baptist Church. I'm also president of the Lake Community Development Corporation. Let me thank you, first of all, for the opportunity and privilege to work with the commissioners in providing a safe haven in the Allendale area. Our church is located in the Martin Luther King area. When the YWCA came up for sale, we felt like that was a valuable entity for the community, and we purchased it, and we've been in the process. We've been successful in providing a community center for that area. Our work with the parish it was our hope to open, it has an indoor swimming pool, heated swimming pool, and we have been working to get the pool up and running. However, once we got the building and started the project, we ran into so many problems with the pool, and the cost was just more than what we had funds to do. It was supposed to be a project between the corporation, the parish, and the state. However, the state funds did not come through. The project was two-pronged. One was to get the pool open, and the other was to do work in the gym. I'm here because the cost to operate the pool is more than what we are able to afford. In a meeting on last week, to ask that the remaining funds can actually be used in the gym facility to actually finish resurfacing the floor and other things that we can do so that can continue to be a community center. It is currently being used as a community center 6 days of the week, and we want to continue to do it. And so if we could rewrite the agreement, the endeavor, so that the remaining funds could be used to finish work in the gym, we would appreciate it very much.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes, thank you, Vice President. Pastor, if we were to do that, what's the long-range plan for the pool? Because that's really been my focus all the time, is just more the swimming pool, and I'm interested to know that if the commission were to do that, what would be, that means that some $24,000 would be thrown down the drain, basically, and we would be putting $16,000 toward, the gym floor. And I'm just saying, what is your idea about
the pool?
Yeah.
Still want to do the pool, but as I discussed last week, now we have to redo the filtering system. It was an old pool, an old building, and once we drained it, there were so many health hazards and broken tiles and things that we had to replace to do it. I still want to open the pool because I think that the parish needs it, the city needs it, but we're going to have to try to raise more funds to do it. But we're still interested in doing it.
What was the 24,000 already spent? The money that's already been spent, what was it spent on?
It's new heater. Once we put the heater in, we had to reduct it. We had to rerun the pipes for the gas. We had to repair the bottom of the pool, new drain. We had to repair, just repairing up to this point. But then after we got it all repaired, now the filtering system has to be replaced. And when we asked for the money, we were in hopes to have gotten the pool, the heater rather, that the city had pulled out. But we were not able to get that. I did ask for it. So when we had to buy a new heater, then the existing venting system wouldn't work, and so that was additional money.
Hey, Mr. Johnson.
This question is for our attorney. On the original endeavor agreement that we set up, was the pool and the gym floor included in that agreement?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so basically there wouldn't be having to rewrite an agreement because it's already included.
I think it would probably be wiser to spend.
Come get Mike.
I think it would probably be wiser to rewrite it to take the pool out.
Okay, even though some funds have already been spent on the pool?
Right.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Escudé?
You've seen documentation supporting the fact that these funds were spent on the pool?
Yes, Pastor Everett has submitted receipts.
Okay. What's the other question? Do you recall ever, because I don't, when we were asked or approached about this project, that it was based on participation from the state?
I don't recall that.
Okay. Pastor, when you realized you wasn't going to be able to complete the project, why did you fail to not contact someone here and let them know what was going on? It seemed like we really had to kind of pry the information or extract the information.
No, you didn't have to pry the information. There was no timeline for us to complete the project.
No, I understand that, but I think we've been asking for an update on this for a while. Do you want to get her back up here?
Might as well stay.
Whatever she's asked for, we've given her.
In a timely manner?
Yes.
I'm asking her, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When were you made aware that this project wasn't going to be completed?
Last week.
Last week?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
We did it in 9.
Bowman?
Yeah, I just have one question. The original amount, was that 40,000?
Just a minute. Wait a minute, Donna.
And so, I just want to understand it. I wasn't here. My question is, and I think I heard you or somebody mention 16,000?
That was me. 24.
You said 60?
16,000 is remaining of the 40,000 and the 24,000 spent already on the pool efforts.
Okay.
16,000 is left.
So the 16,000, instead of being used for the pool, that's left over, you want to divert it to did I hear you say gym?
Yes.
Gym floor or gym?
Floor, signage.
I just want to understand it. Thank you, sir.
Can I respond to George? Can I respond? Go ahead.
Mr. Cox first.
No, all right. How you use it?
Okay, just for a point of information, when we first started this, we allocated $40,000, and I was told by then the director of the program that for $40,000 they could get the pool running, and it would take them through the spring and the summer, and then the church or a grant of some kind would be able to carry it on. That's how I got involved to the extent of requesting that kind of funding. Matter of fact, I requested $30,000, and then Commissioner McCullough had $10,000 she couldn't use in her district, so we put it together, made the $40,000 to make sure that we could get the pool open, specifically the pool. And I think a sidebar was to do something with the gym floor. So that's how we got to that. And then, as time rolled on, we never really, it was almost a year before they came to get the money. And then after that, we're here now because we hadn't been able to complete the project.
Mr. Fox.
Ms. Donna? Now, what I'm fixing to ask has no reflection on your project, so don't see into it. I was told years ago, and we've had this discussion many, many times, that we do not take public funds through the NGO for construction. I'm hearing a lot of construction on this project. How is that possible?
Commissioner Cox, I believe it's because this would be a pool program.
It's a
that's in
construction program.
We don't do it for buildings. We don't. You're exactly right about that. But the reason we don't do it for buildings is because those buildings theoretically can be used for something that we could not fund other than the purpose of that organization. Now, I guess this is sort of new to hear of using a pool for something else, but the argument would have been you can only use a pool for a pool. But I think that becomes a problem if the pool is not open.
After this, I'd like to ask the board, and with our president not being here, I'll get with him, but we need to get some clarification on how these NGOs are going, simply because, and no disrespect to the attorneys here or to Pastor, we had a request a couple of years ago of a gentleman who wanted to update his kitchen for a soup line, and he was denied. Now, he later came back and he redid his request and put the money elsewhere. Okay, I'm hearing a gym floor, I'm hearing a pool, and I'm not real happy because 8, 9, 10, 11 districts in the NGO process is clean. So I've got a problem with this. I'd like some clarification, and if we need to go back and redraw this and rewrite this, I think we need to. So we will be working on this pretty soon.
Chris, today?
I have one more question, because I know this is your area you follow up, and I'm like David, before I reappropriate a penny. This was requested in '09 and put into the 10 budget.
Correct.
And this is almost the end of 11. We're almost in 12. And we're just now finding out about this. It's a problem somewhere, gentlemen. Problem somewhere.
Exactly. Can get it.
Okay? Thank you.
I have one statement. I, for one, at this point, and I know there were some letters that have been going between the two. I, for one, would at least like to see the $16,000 returned to the Parish Commission immediately, and then maybe we can have further discussions on what to do about the 24. This, what Mr. Cox says is absolutely true. I've been on the NGO committee for 3 years, and we do not do construction. And I know in speaking with Commissioner Pearson last year that the 99% of the reason that he wanted to give this money was so that pool would be put into use. And he knew that there would have to be some work, but that the pool would be put into use and that there would be enough money to help operate it. And none of that has taken place. So I think that we need to at least get what's left back, and then if we, then start over, I guess is what I'm saying. But I'd like to see us get at least what's left back, because I don't feel like that what we agreed upon has been done. So I'd like to see the balance of that money taken back. Then that's 1 out of 12 voices.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What construction are we talking about?
You asking me?
Whoever says that you've given money for construction.
Okay, when you got the, can I speak, Mr.
Go ahead.
When you got the pool, it's not working. You got tile to replace, you got a pump to replace, you have to redo some of the pool, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's construction. Now, the floor in the gym, redoing the floor,
Yes.
putting up signs?
We haven't done that yet.
Well, no, I'm just saying, that's your plan.
Okay.
That is, in the way I read the ordinance or the law, as far as the guidelines, that to me falls under construction. If you go in and relay a floor or sand the floor and then seal it and all that, that's construction. I mean, you probably got a great program. I don't have a problem with the program. But when I go after an NGO, I'm looking at the food bank, Meals on Wheels, stuff like that. I've had a lot of projects that I've been told recently that we couldn't do anything with simply because it was a public-owned building and construction. So that's why I've asked the question today. Public-owned building, y'all own the building now, right?
Yes.
Okay. But you're using the funds basically the same way that I brought forth another NGO or another company that wanted to do some construction work or some additions to a building. So I brought up my question simply because of NGOs that have came up before you and an issue that came up with me in the last 6 months. That was my way of going. And there are guidelines that say no construction.
Bowman? Yes, sir. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the purpose of the funds were for the pool, maybe repairs so repairs wouldn't be, but was that specified when they got it, that's what it was for?
I would ask that when we go back and pull the original.
Well, Don can tell you that right now, Commissioner, if you want to know. Don, would you come back and restate the agreement, please?
The agreement really merely references the running of the pool, and it does reference the repair of the basketball court. However, my recollection is that their application, when it was submitted, did not include or did not specify that there would need to be pool repairs. I would have to go back and look to verify that, but that is not my recollection of what was reviewed by the committee at that time.
All right, I have no other speakers. Do you have any final comment or anything?
Yes, and I'll be finished shortly. The agreement was not that we could not use the funds, it was to get the pool open, which meant anything that we needed, we knew we could not pay personnel, but anything that we needed in order to get the pool open. When the city left the building, they pulled the heater.
That's nice of them.
Okay. I went to the city and to SPAR to see if we could get the heater back. Follow me close. We couldn't get the heater. Then I had to buy a brand new heater. Open the pool without the heater. Once the heater is in place, we discovered that the venting didn't work. So we had to hire a fabrication company to come in, fabricate new venting. Then once we got that point, we got the gas company out, we had to get a plumber out, run new lines. Then we're ready to try to get the pool open. Drain all the water out so we can get it back in. Broken tiles on the floor. The drain was not there. And then it had to be repaired around it. So it's been one thing after another. We were supposed to get funds also from the state. When we applied to the commissioners, we also applied to our state representative. Funds came in, went through the Caddo Council on Aging. Funds actually came in. We never got the funds. The program was not just, the pool was one, but this was our idea to actually operate a community center. And we wanted to be a site where senior citizens could come. We started out working with the Caddo Council on Agents, and we were delivering the meals. But all of a sudden, everything fell through. So we have been working, trying to get the pool open, but every time we get to one point, we discover something else needs to be done. But we have not used no funds to reconstruct, but we did use them to repair what needs to be repaired on the pool.
Do you have any estimates as to what it would cost to get the pool running? To complete
I'm waiting on a bid or proposal now for what it's going to cost to replace the filtering system, because that's the problem. And it's old. I don't know what it's going to cost.
Scott.
Real quick, the city, and I'm going to throw this back on the cities because you were given a bad project. The city got rid of that because you could ask Shelley with SPAR that and Ms. Bowman probably knows this too. She was in there at the same time. The city pools had to be refitted as far as the bottom safety for safety issues. And then when they pulled the heater out of you, they just upped your cost $10,000. Me just sitting here hearing it.
13,000.
13,000. Well, I was close. So the city, I hate to say it, gave you a bad sale of goods. I don't know what y'all paid for the building, but
we didn't buy it from the city, and we actually bought it from YWCA.
Right.
But there's no way that I don't think anybody was trying. It's just that
for the EDA.
We didn't know, and then once we got into the project, I mean, that's where we are.
Yes.
Mr. Escudé.
One final comment. I think we'd like to see what we can do ultimately to get the pool open. That was the thing. The problem, with all due respect, is money was specifically for the operation of the pool. Okay? Doesn't matter what the intentions were, doesn't matter what happened, doesn't matter that the repairs need to be made. As we're going to find out, it's for the operation of the pool. So the money wasn't used for its original purpose. That's the problem that faces us. And that's what I'm trying to get my head around. So,
but can I interrupt you?
No, you can let me finish speaking. You've had your chance. You're accusing or kind of inferring. I understand what your intentions are. I understand getting the pool, but the contracts never said repair, never said addition, never said any of this kind of stuff. It was to get it open. The gym floor was the repair part. That's the problem. The problem is, instead of coming to us and let us know you had a problem or contacting someone with the parish, money was spent against the intent and purposes for which it was appropriated. That's the problem. And I want to get to the bottom of that and get clear and make sure everything's fine before we continue. Now, I hope you can appreciate that.
I appreciate it, but
okay.
The money was spent on the pool.
The money, operation, do you understand the difference between operation and maintenance, operation and construction, operations and repair? Okay.
The agreement was not to operate the pool, it was to get it open.
Well, I know one thing. I'm sure you're good at what you do. Our attorneys are good at what they do. And I'm gonna follow their lead until they tell me different. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, administrative report.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have a couple things today for you. Speaking of master plan, as Commissioner Escudé alluded to earlier, we have Providence Engineering, Mr. Mark Black and Kent Rogers here from the NL to talk to us briefly about an idea about planning the I-49 corridor and possibly extending it beyond that. I know we had several meetings with the MPC, Commissioner Dominic Smith and Mr. Pearson, talking about the idea of perhaps extending this towards the rural area of the parish. And there's an idea being put before you today. You have a copy at your desk, the I-49 land corridor study proposal. And they're going to briefly kind of give you some ideas. And what's being proposed is that we leverage the available funds and probably add some more to it to include the rural areas of the parish, north and south, to come up with a plan. Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, it's interesting that y'all have Kent Rogers, Executive Director, Northwest Louisiana Council of Governments, 401 Market Street. Suite 460, Shreveport, Louisiana. It's interesting y'all had some of the questions and comments you had earlier this morning or earlier this afternoon, because that's some of what we're here about.
Plays right into your hands, doesn't it?
Do what?
Plays right into your hands, actually.
We have a proposal before you. Part of it we will be doing, and part of it we want to expand upon. With the completion of I-49, with the funding that's coming in to complete the construction of I-49 north from Keys Point to the Arkansas border, part of our roles and responsibilities as the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, not the MPC, for the highway projects, we want to look at how the land and how the property around I-49 corridor is developed, how we could make the best use of that corridor, and how it can best serve the citizens of Caddo Parish. As we started looking at land use along the corridor, several discussions came up. Woody brought it up in one of our NPO meetings. Roy has also brought it up on several occasions of basically expanding the scope to include the rural parts of the parish. And that's basically what we're asking y'all for some assistance in next year, or sooner if possible, is looking at how we can expand land use planning to cover the rest of the parish, the rural parts of the parish. Our corridor is roughly a mile wide is what we're looking at for the 49 corridor, and I know there's other issues out there that could be addressed under this process that would cover the rest of the parish. We have funds available to us through some of the, trying to remember the exact allocation where it came from, but part of the total pot for the I-49 North project, we had roughly $3 million set aside. Part of that for the inner city section and the detailed study work that's going to be going on with the inner city section, and the rest of it to look at the corridor as a whole. What we'd like to do is basically what you're asking for. Some of this other is to study the rest of the parish, what can and can't be done out there, what the citizens of Caddo Parish want or don't want within the rural parts of the area, and put together some framework for legislation for this body to be able to pass or not pass or whatnot for those other areas. We also heard earlier this afternoon that there's a potential that some of those other municipalities would also want to join in. Specifically, I think Vivian has some interest within their jurisdictional boundaries. We'd have to massage the scope a little bit to fit with that. Basically, the process is going out a series of public meetings in and around the areas. One, to get the ideas of not just the citizens, but what do people want to see? What would people be comfortable with? What wouldn't they be comfortable with? And go from there. We've passed along all the information that was done for Bossier and Bossier Parish in their, I guess their now effort for, I think it came out as a 3-tiered zoning process within the parish. That could be one of the options that comes up out of this.
Could you talk a little louder? There's some folks back here that are saying they can't hear what you're saying.
Okay. Also have Mark Black here from Providence. Mark is their primary land use planner for Providence. He would be the lead on this project. Y'all have any questions or anything?
Mr. Dominic? What, how far is your planning study? And it's my understanding y'all will have federal funding to do
It's actually state funding.
Okay. How far does it go outside the I-49 corridor, right? I understand about a mile.
It's a mile wide per side. It varies a little bit as you get closer to the interchanges and whatnot, but just
Woody and I talked about,
all intents purposes, basically a mile.
Woody and I talked about going out a little bit further. It may need to go out a little further. We ain't talked about parish wide. You're sitting there saying parish wide. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, well, that's not what I was told.
Okay.
Because I'm not for a parish-wide study, but I think that, we need to look at something along the corridor. And you were saying Vivian wants to join involved in this?
We will be handling the
Who told you Vivian was?
That was
Commissioner Dominique. that was based on you and I's meeting with the mayor a month and a half ago, when you and I, Robert, met with the mayor up at Vivian. He asked us to go beyond that corridor, as you recall. He pointed out an area he wanted to have planned that far exceed the limits of this plan that's being talked about today. And I told Mr. Rogers that you and I met with the mayor. He expressed an interest on that. Could that possibly be a part of the study? And he said yes.
Now again, that would, take some massaging of the scope and whatnot to include those areas. Again.
Who's going to be doing the study anyway?
Providence Engineering will be the lead. Correct. They're also the lead on.
How long will it take? Do we have any idea?
We have
how far this is going to go?
We have an 18-month time frame.
Is y'all's study, is it limited to traffic issues, or what will it concern any growth issues and things along those lines?
It's primarily land use and use of the properties in and around the corridor. Yes, there will be some traffic involved because, depending on how much traffic you expect in an area, you'll have a different land use.
And how much is the cost so far?
It varies, and that's where, depending on how much and how far out the scope goes and what all y'all need. The maximum I would be asking y'all for would be $250,000. That would cover the entire parish, and that would be matching our funds. I have roughly about that same to do the corridor.
Are you going to use as or at least refer to the recently completed master plan as far as their thinking and determining and their research as far as it goes to extending that?
Yes. And that's where some of that variation, as you asked, how wide it varies depending on, some of the corridor. We'll be doing less detailed of a work within the city limits or the current MPC boundaries because, of course, some of that has already been done through the recent master plan effort. Plus, there's already controls and things out there for that area. As you go out and as you get closer to the interchanges, there'll be a difference. There also, depending on the outlook of the area, definitely I guess, smart growth, I guess is how you could say it. Want to make sure we get a handle on this before, every interchange becomes a truck stop and triple X place.
Is this the corridor study? Basically, if you're just hugging the corridor, is this something required by the federal government or by the state?
It's not 100% required, but it's highly suggested.
Okay, so the state gave you the money to do this?
Yes.
To do the corridor study?
Correct.
Through this parish and all parishes?
No, what we have the funding for is within Caddo Parish, from the Caddo DeSoto line to the...
That's the study, a mile both sides approximately?
Approximately, yeah.
And, okay, the state gave you the money, and I like you, but don't take this personal, and you want money from us?
The request to y'all would be outside of that corridor.
If anybody wants to go outside of that corridor, because then now you're talking about parish-wide zoning, and we rejected that in the master plan. What would be the maximum effective range of the study to accomplish what you want to study and not be intrusive on the landowners? Is it a mile both sides? I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I'm just saying, if we'd have wanted this, we'd have paid for this, and you'd have zoning parish-wide. I don't want to get us to the point to where it doesn't matter whether you live in the city or in the parish. You're under city rules. People escape the city, and for good reason.
Correct.
So, given that, what do you need from us if we're just going to study the corridor on both sides as recommended?
Nothing really.
Who's got to approve these changes? The study, whatever it recommends, who has to implement them into law?
Ultimately, y'all would.
Okay. Thanks.
Doc, Mr. Smith and I, when Bossier was doing their tier system, I'm going to tell you, I like it, simply because it's a defined area of commerce, residential. They broke it down very well. As far as some people call it parish-wide zoning, I don't. I call it planning for the future. Because if you don't, just like you stated a minute ago, You can have a truck stop, you can have a hog farm, and you can have a residential district 30 feet down, 30 feet across from it, or whatever. So this is needed. Time frame, would y'all say 18 months?
18 months, correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Smith?
You know, the issue of parish-wide zoning sounds so horrible, and us in this, mostly in the city, get all nervous and excited, and some of the rural people do the same thing, except when they have a zoning problem. Something comes in close to them they don't want. My experience dealing with rural area in the parish is they do want the protection, because they are building nice homes there, and they many times don't have protection. And then there's another set of people who don't want to have anything with anybody telling them what to do. We understand that. But parish-wide planning is something that we will have to do, in my limited knowledge, if we want to grow our parish the way it should grow. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Dominic?
As far as the study goes, I mean, I'm open as maybe looking a little bit beyond that, beyond the corridor, but I'm not for a parish-wide zoning issues. There may be something that we may need to go beyond the corridor to look at other issues on a specific basis. And I don't know, maybe we need to form a committee or meet on some of these issues, but I'm not, especially at this time, in favor of a parish-wide zoning. I appreciate you coming here today to present these issues here, because it's obviously that you're going to do this corridor study, and at some future that we would have to enforce those rules and regulations if it happens. So I guess we'll continue to think over this and see what we got to do. When will this start, I guess, is the next question.
Some of that would depend on y'all. If we want to start massaging the scope and moving out and doing a few things different, of course I would hold off on getting started. Some of the specific inner city work, we're actually having a kickoff tomorrow, but that won't affect this.
Okay. Yesterday.
What reasonable time frame do you need, lead time would you need to know that we would want to include this beyond the scope of the corridor?
Couple weeks.
Pardon me?
Couple weeks.
Couple of weeks?
I mean,
it's an 18-month study, Kent.
Do I?
Couple of weeks? It's an 18-month study?
No. I guess I misunderstood your question. We will, here's kind of the process that we were going to do, and we could certainly start more inside the city and the areas closer to the cities and work towards the outer areas in terms of the public meetings and whatnot to massage it. So Mark may be able to answer.
I don't want to get up.
Go ahead, sure.
Thank you, sir. I'm Mark Black. I'm senior planner with Providence Engineering and Environmental Group based in Baton Rouge, 1201 Main Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70802. I'm in the Houma, Louisiana office, however.
Houma or Homer?
Houma.
Houma, okay.
We have a big office in Houma. Some of the things I've heard here tonight, you're equating planning and zoning, and they're not the same thing. The intent of this study is to find out basically what people want. And so a lot of effort is going to be put into public meetings and hearing from people and truly understanding what they want to do because of those interchanges and the growth, the new traffic, and the economic development opportunities that those intersections represent. And those intersections, as I look at the map, are going to affect virtually every community in North Caddo Parish. So we want to hear what they have to say, what their issues are specifically. And from that, then we can begin to formulate a plan that makes sense for that community in that area. Now, as far as zoning, that's a regulatory issue. If a recommendation for that comes out of this study, it's up to you to implement it or not. We don't do that. We don't implement zoning. That's an outgrowth of the entire process if that's what people want. And there are degrees of zoning. There are some that are very, very loosely construed, and there are some that are very, like you have within the city, very detailed in nature because of the density of development. You don't have that in the country. But before you can implement something like that, you've got to understand what the local issues are, and that's going to be the major effort here, is to understand what those issues are. Driven by the growth that we anticipate, that the state anticipates will take place, the economic development that will take place by virtue of those intersections. So, does it make sense to go beyond the 1 mile corridor? Sure it does, because all the little communities are going to be impacted by this, not just those within that 1 mile corridor. So
they're going to be impacted because it doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive impact. The interstate, that's etched in stone. It's path. They're falling victim to wherever the thing happens to lie. So, how many communities you talk about? It's not that many.
Well, there are some that are going to be more directly impacted than others. Those that are in the extreme northwest corner of the parish, a little less than those, say, Gillum, Belcher, those communities. But I think they're all going to be impacted, and it's incumbent upon us in doing this to find out what their issues are with that. If they've got no issues, fine. But we
It's going to cost $250,000 to find out what those issues are. I go up there quite a bit. There ain't that much going on up there.
It's a maximum amount.
Oh, maximum amount. Okay. I think, and just to be clear, I have as much rural area as anybody else here now. So,
Congratulations.
Pardon me?
Congratulations.
Well, and I live back in the city, and I live in the city by choice, but I know those people live in the rural areas by choice too, okay? And I wish there were 11 other Ron Pauls sitting up here because we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. But I understand the need for planning, but I don't understand, I agree with you, for oppressive ordinances and zoning and telling people what to do. Eventually time takes care of that. And there's nothing wrong with building something and 20 years later, in my mind, coming and tearing it down and building something new. It keeps things going and people, it's kind of like the locust theory. They destroy one forest, they have to go and feed somewhere else. Eventually that forest comes back, but it keeps everything recycled. Well, think about it. If everybody took care of their homes and their property in this country and painted, and you didn't need all this stuff and nobody needed help, what would you do to the housing industry in here? It'd cripple the construction industry. Because there'd be no need for new houses, because you wouldn't have blighted neighborhoods and you wouldn't have this recycling of resources. It's just a perfect world. But the bottom line is that the restrictions that I'm hesitant to put on people. So I think the rural commissioners committee needs to meet. We're obviously going to argue about this because we've got 4 or 5 different mindsets, and give us a few weeks to come up with something, because this is important. Because here's the one thing. Once we do it, gentlemen, we own it. And then everybody comes here and goes, now that you've owned it, you take ownership, I need this, I need that, you fix this. So be prepared to step up to the plate.
Well, some of those things, the issues that, y'all were having earlier, with are the roads in or out? Who is responsible for them? I mean, some of those things that there may be some other similar type issues that pop up in any of these communities that could say, okay, here's another one of your ordinances.
A lot of those things like that can't come out of people's frustrations because they really don't know what the laws are and what our responsibility is, and they come to their individual commissioner, and we have to give them the bad news. So they want to make their case to the full body to see if maybe something else can be done. And sometimes something can, and sometimes something can't. But those are rare. But all I'm saying is, if we're going to study it, and we're going to recommend, and we're going to pass ordinances and have zoning or planning, as David calls it, then we own it, and we're going to be responsible for it. That's all. And I'm not shutting you down. I'm open to it. But I think we need to discuss it, and this body needs to come to an agreement on which path that we take and how we want to go with it. I appreciate your vision and
and your foresightedness in looking at all that, and
To answer
I'll try to be open-minded like you are.
Oh,
To answer
God.
some of your earlier questions in terms of when and how far in, I guess what kind of, because Woody and I have talked about this a little bit off and on, and I guess what kind of put it to head was when I put in my formal request for other funding for next year, fixed for next calendar year, I included this in there. So that could give you an idea of January timeframe.
In line, wait in line with everybody else.
All right,
Thank you, Ken.
Fox, and I hope they'll be the...
No, that's okay, I got all my answers. We're basically just gonna have to get in that rural committee and
Back up in the little room.
a very small room and.
Cage.
We got a deal from the sheriff where he confiscated knives and medium knives. They're gonna have to check us before we go in that little room.
Y'all let me know what happened when y'all finished.
All right, thank you very much. Good job. Before we go any further, I want to recognize Representative Richie Burford. And I believe you have brought us about a $10 million check from the state for our water.
All right, all right.
$2.
No wonder the governor's not here. It's only $2.
There's a big check, is it?
The paper costs more than the money is.
Okay, Woody, we're still on administrative report.
Yes, sir. We have Mr. Dennis Carmen, Chief Engineer and Director for the White Waters Interior District. And he's going to give us, share some thoughts with the Sparta, because we had similar issues with the Perusa Wilcox Aquifer. And they were able to recharge their system, so he's going to share some knowledge with us on that.
Sparta, that's the one over Monroe that covers Monroe and Webster?
Yes, sir, and part of Ocean, yes, sir. And I asked him to be brief, so he's aware of the time as well.
Thank you. It's, just want to start out by saying, Mr. Vice President, met you first time, nice meeting you, and I've been really well, starting all the way back here in the back. It makes you, I love Louisiana folks, you know, they kind of make me feel right at home with Randy sitting back in the back and Woody here and Todd sitting back over here, you know, just real good. And I was invited out. I made a presentation over at Ruston, I guess it was, to the Louisiana Water Commission. But I was over there and he asked me to come over and just make a little presentation here. My name is Dennis Carmen. I'm a professional engineer. I've got old working with water. I work out of Little Rock area, North Little Rock. And today I kind of like to talk a little bit about just an Eastern Arkansas groundwater issue. I want to start out by saying, you know, we kind of all in this together. You know, whatever, groundwater does not have any political sides. It goes wherever it runs downhill unless you put a pump to it. But discuss some of the solutions, a little bit about my project. They're paying for me to be here. At least they pay me a salary, and I go where I think it works. Talk a little bit about sustainability, something that's environmentally sound, something in economics. It all works, and that's all got to fit together. And again, the Sparta Aquifer, we'll get into that just a little bit. But I want to start out by saying that we are water rich, not only in the state of Arkansas, but Louisiana down here in this region. You know, that's one of the reasons that a lot of people come. Like to stay here, hunting, the fishing, and all that other kind of stuff. But and I'd also want to make the point that you guys are going to have that water issue. You're lucky enough to be in maybe a little bit better shape than other parts of the state of Louisiana, and certainly where that we're at up north of you. We can solve these problems. We got to work together. The big things that we run into is some litigation. The two major issues is litigation, and it's a complex issue to understand. You can't see the groundwater, you know. So even though it's out, I see the problems. I see where the water, the data, the numbers. A lot of your technical people down here see the same thing, but you can't see the water. Talk a little bit about one of the big questions I got over at Ruston in that discussion was this critical groundwater designation. Over on my left, as you're looking at this, we've got study areas that you can see broken out, and the one I work is in that I don't know what color it is. Or I guess it's pink that's sitting there in the middle. And one I want to focus on the Sparta is the blue, which is just north of you here. It's the Union County area. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 study areas. There's 3 of those that has been designated as critical in the north, north of you. I want to focus just a little bit on that very northeast corner up there for the political part of this. The red is designated as critical, but if you'll note, it follows the county boundary on the western side of those counties. So you got a little green, I think I saw a pointer here. You got a little green. You got a little, I don't know if anybody can see, but a little green. That's a ridge that runs through there called the Corliss Ridge. This is a critical designation. You can see those counties right there are split. They go down, one county is in the critical groundwater area and one is not. This is Jackson County. And those are all decisions were made by local. You know, I personally think wrong, but and pretty much. But what hurts them? They chose not to be designated as critical for what reasons? I've really administratively it doesn't matter. What it does is this criteria that we're using here helps us allocate money. State of Arkansas, USDA. Now we're talking about a lot of farm stuff here. But these counties that locally, they decide that they didn't want to be designated or a part of the critical groundwater area. So if a farmer invests over in the red area, they get a tax credit of about 50% of their investment on the eastern or on the western side there in the yellow. Even though they may still be critical, they've decided to be staying out. So they may get a 10% tax credit. Those are the implications of a good part of this stuff, as well as bringing attention to the problem. Now we're out of water right here in the top aquifer, this area right here. We're out. It's not a matter of when, we're out. That's bringing in the deeper aquifer, Sparta aquifer, which has got region-wide implications. This is all ag-related in the eastern part of the state. A line through right there, Little Rock sits right in here, so anything that's Highway 67, 167, and basically running south through here, the belt basin's right in here. So those are all areas that are eventually going to be, at some point when the study is completed, that resource is critical now. Whether it gets that designation is not. This area right here is strictly the Sparta aquifer. A lot of it has got to do with the Union County, El Dorado, some of those areas up in there, and a lot of it is municipal. I want to come back a little bit on the ag, and my point here is not to focus with you folks so much on ag, but it's to focus on the fact that we're all in this thing together. Now, the lower Mississippi Valley in here grows, between Arkansas and Louisiana, we grow 60% of the nation's rice, and everybody knows that. But a lot of that up in this area, Arkansas is the 4th rated irrigated state. Most of that is rice, and most of that is driven by rice. But these are where that you're having some issues out in the part of the state. So our water, it is serious. It's not something that's just going to go away, and it's not something that we can deal with on a piece-by-piece basis. We probably could 50 years ago, and it would have cost about 25% of what it's going to cost today. We're water rich. I want to keep emphasizing that. We are water rich. We're just using the wrong source. When you look at our water, and these are all wells or withdrawal points, down on the bottom is our groundwater. There's about, right now that number is closer to 50,000 than it is 44. But there's approaching 50,000 groundwater withdrawals in the state, wells in the eastern part. And you can see it gets fewer down here. In this very southeast part of the state. This is all irrigation. These up here are surface water. A lot of them, 6,000 or so, that's where water's coming out of our ditches and stuff like that. This has created these problems. They show up, they don't go away. The red area right in here is the deeper aquifer. That's Sparta aquifer. That was created primarily by Pine Bluff International Paper and industrial production. We all are for that. The yellow is the area that I work specifically, and you can look down here in Union County, which is north and east of where we're at today. But these are all areas that are, the red is critical groundwater. These are the cone of depressions that's occurring. We're seeing them in the southeast part of the state, and these are extending on down into Louisiana. This is where we're out of water, but the really huge problem is that crosshatched area right there. Wish I wasn't so nervous or whatever I am, but that's as good as I can hold that right there. But that area and that crosshatched area up there is where we're running into the deeper aquifer and the top aquifer, the alluvial aquifer. They're running together. Now that's a serious problem, because we're talking about drinking water supply right here. So we're trying to make some adjustments for that. Anything you see on here that's red or that's not blue, again, Little Rock's that's right here. Some of this extends on to the south. But anything you see red or tan is a problem. That's 35% of this eastern Arkansas, and that's also our economy. It's huge. And we're trying to do some things that addresses that. You can see some 10-year changes. Now, I want you to look at this map right here, and you see that red area right in there. You know, it looks really bad. It is bad. But the 10-year change, it's not all that bad. The reason, we're out of water. It can't change once it's gone. So that's one of the things that I guess I would say, looking for the future, and I appreciate your comment, is, you know, there's one thing against, quote, regulations. You know, I'm kind of going to agree with you 100% there. On the other side, we need to do those planning things that looks forward to making sure that we don't get into these problems. Is this going to change? Now, these right here, big things, and I'm trying to move through this pretty fast, but this is 97 to 2002 and the change in irrigated acres. Red dots are lost acres, blue dots are increased acres. So you can see what's happening there. This stuff out here is moving to the east, and we're not going to be able to do away with those irrigated acres. They grow on 17% of the land. We grow 40% of this nation's food and fiber. That's huge. That trend has continued. But not only has it continued, you can see the red spots right in there where that we're running into some problems. You can also see, now I'm not going to say all these are water, but you can see some on the south part of Louisiana. I kept mentioning that we're water rich. If you look at anything in here that's purple as you're going up, purple and blue, we got lots and lots of water here compared to the western part of the U.S. It just happens to be in the form of rainfall. Talking about some of the recharge issues. The recharge is slow. We got a lot of rain, runoff's pretty quick. We got water out there, we just need to be managing it the right way. Here's our water in a year's time. Here's where we need to do irrigation. Up here's their water. They're kind of somewhat out of balance. When you look at that a little bit more closer, here's our when we need irrigated water. And the reason I want to keep talking about farming stuff versus the cities, everybody thinks cities use a lot of water. Maybe the cities do. But 90% of our water, 85% anyway, is ag. 90% probably. So, you know, ag water has got to be addressed in one shape or fashion. Here's where we need it. Here's where we have it. Now, there ought to be a little bit of you kind of see a little bit of an imbalance there. So what we're trying to do is take some of that water that comes in the off-season, store it for the winter. Talked about the Sparta aquifer, depth of water. Anything in here that you see that blue's in pretty good shape. Anything there that you see that red, that's depth of water in 2010. I use that because it paints a pretty broad brush. But right here, we got problems. This is that Union County area, but the blue stuff is not all that bad as far as the Sparta aquifer. The change, again, is over in, this is Jefferson County, this is south of Little Rock in that area. Most of this is the Sparta and it's municipal driven. And you can look, this is 03 to 08, and I need you to really pay some attention to this area down here. Ouachita, Union, this area that's, here's Miller County, you guys are sitting somewhere right in there. But all this area over here, and you see some blue. But here is a huge success story. When you look at all this right here, 5-year change, 05 to 010, this is El Dorado. This is where the people got together. They taxed themselves. They built a pipeline from the Ouachita River to bring them surface water in. And you can already see the implications of that. That is coming back. I mean, we just need to give that aquifer a little relief, and it's coming back. That's the message that I kind of want to leave with. We're putting in a project. I want to hit these very, very quickly. This is for ag. What we're dealing with is a delivery system, some pipelines. We're storing the water very much like what you're doing here in your city. with your tanks and stuff that you see out there that kind of spreads out the time. But we're delivering water, pipelines, putting in that reservoir. We're capturing the water that's coming off of their farms, and we're putting it in these reservoirs, and then they can use that to irrigate their crops. So we're capturing all the water, we're recycling that water, we're putting it in the reservoir so that off-season water, when it rains in April, May, February, we're storing that. When it's not raining in July and August, then that's when we're using it. Distribution system, a canal, pipelines, and this is one project that we're trying to address over roughly 300,000 acres. 250 of it is irrigated croplands. Tailwater pits, as I said, that's where we capture the water, store the water, pumps, again, the reservoirs, the underground pipes. This is what our reservoirs look like in 1st August, and that's pretty well each year. 1st of August, we'd like to have those filled up again. But without rainfall, we use that. If it rains, we capture it and put some water back in there. There's, again, that was early or late June of this year. Drought up there, a lot of water lost. Distribution system. This is our pump station. A lot of you are familiar with a lot of the pump stations down here on the sides. This is the first one for irrigation purposes, mostly, I'll just say, east of the 100th meridian. Dallas is on the 100th meridian. You guys are talking about city water. Well, that's one of our pipes that go in place. These are 250,000 acres of irrigated land, and that's requires the movement of a lot of water. We are dealing with about a $400 million project. This was identified in 1940 as a problem. There's a plan developed in 1950 that could have been solved for roughly, less than $100 million, probably 70 in today's dollars. Then in about 1970, that wasn't done because of whatever. Then in about 1970, that was about $150 million. In 1990, it was about $200 million, a little over, and today it's $400 million. And so at some point in time, hopefully we'll get that done. Lawsuits, we've had 3 lawsuits out of the 8th Circuit Court. We've won them all. Still, all it does is take time. So far, each year delay costs us $15 million a year. We're up to about $75 million in that, and it was all over primarily the threat of ivory-bill woodpecker, for those of you in here that followed that. We lost that. We won that lawsuit, but we lost the money battle of the increased cost. But I want to say the lawsuits, the planning, the environmental reviews, all that other kind of stuff, we won the lawsuit, but their lawyers got paid from the U.S. government, which is a little bit of a problem on our part. But it's a problem, and I want to end up by saying that any law that's got the criteria of no impact, no matter the cost, is a bad law. So I want to say thank you. I've got my phone number down here. Philip back here has got my number. I gave it all down to Woody. If anybody wants to call, thank you very much. I appreciate the invite being down here.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Cox?
I saw a lot of pipe, a lot of construction, a lot of cement. What agencies put in money besides federal, state?
Federal and local. Okay, we're paying local folks will pay 35% of the cost. The 65% is federal funding, okay? The state's involved, they loan us the money, we gotta pay it back over a long period of time.
Would you have gotten that money if they called it an area for service?
I'll say that the designation in and of itself of being critical, I'll say it, yes, it certainly does. It does help bring attention to the problem. It is in fact critical. It is not going to go away. In our instance, it's the economics. Its focus is, I won't say that it's pure and simple as PR. We really didn't care what you called it. I don't. But when the criteria says, we had criteria for the state, that criteria to declare it critical was 1 foot decline a year for 5 years, in other words, 5 foot, but 1 foot decline a year, steady decline, and or losing half of your saturated aquifer thickness, those two.
We're good on both of them. We had a gentleman, and we were lucky enough, we had David Vitter at a luncheon the other day. And water came up in that. And we told him that we had a gentleman from Baton Rouge who came up here and told us we were not in a critical situation. But he's down in Baton Rouge off the taxpayers' money, so he didn't care. So now we're past critical here. But we had put a bug in his ear last week, so.
Well, and all I'm going to do is say, look, we need to address that. They're not, water, land, those things, they're food, fiber, they're not going to go away. It's the roads we're talking about. A lot of you heard this, roads, we need roads, we need, that's our stuff. And I agree they change here, and they change from decade to decade as we do. But we got to have this, water is, again, I'll say, it doesn't have those political boundaries. We've got to figure out how to address those. In the state of Arkansas, the critical designation has got two things. It's not just total clean. One of them just scares the heck out of farmers, because you're going to take my water, you're going to regulate it, you're going to do something like that. Now, I'm going to come back and say, well, okay, maybe that's not true. I'll start there and say that's not true, but at the end of the day, does it matter? When you run out of water, you're out of water. I mean, I don't,
Right. How long did it take, and this is the last question, how long did it take y'all to do that plan?
Very, very, very first start on intents was 91 and completed in 95.
Okay.
But that's over 250,000 acres. We looked at every farm, every tract, where all the pipes and all that kind of stuff was going to go. And a lot of it had to do with all the environmental implications.
Yeah. The woodpecker?
Not at that time. We addressed all that stuff, but now later on that was a serious issue. I mean, it's not in, don't get me started.
You wouldn't have to worry about that down here. I'm good.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it took you, so it took roughly 4 years to get the plan together?
Yes.
Okay, and when did is the project completed?
Oh, no. We started in, the first initial year was 2001, and we did about 2001 to 2004, about $40 million worth of the work on farm. Starting in 04, 05, we started on the pump station, and today we're working on the pump station and some of the pipelines. But in that process from 05 to about 09 was when we were, because of, I guess I'll say, search for the woodpecker that ain't been seen since 1950. It was kind of I'll stop there. I won't say.
Okay, so it's by the time it's finished, it's about 15-year from construction to finish plan. And have you had to? I'm sure you've had to work with the Corps of Engineers.
Yes, the Corps of Engineers is the primary funding agent.
Primary funding agent.
Yes.
And they got $60 billion in backlog, but it looks like to date you probably got them to commit these funds before them and the federal government and everybody admitted that they didn't have funds to commit anymore. Basically, they've been out of money for years. Now they're saying they don't have any money. So we've met the last 4 years with our congressional delegation. They say have no money, $60 billion in backlog, and all that. So, how would you propose to get a project like this funded now?
All I can tell you is a bunch of us starting back at that point in time, you just don't give up. You keep pushing, you just keep, if it's important to the community, it comes down to leadership, it comes down to the let's call it information and data, and then the rest of it is keep pushing. I said 1991, we've had people working on this since 1984. So, I mean, people that are dedicated, 1984.
We keep pushing. I mean, we talk to our delegation just continuously, write emails. We can't threaten them. They check you pretty good at the Capitol before you let you in the building now. So, I mean, so I guess persuasion. But I appreciate your time. It's very interesting.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And your mother? His mother rode with him.
Yeah, I'd just like to introduce her. She don't get out very much. She grew up in the hills and hollers of eastern Kentucky or south central Kentucky in the Appalachians.
Kentucky, where?
South of Lexington, about 50 mile, Liberty, Somerset, Bowling Green, east of Bowling Green, about 60 mile due east.
I got a lot of family from Hopkinsville.
Yes.
Fort Campbell.
Yes.
Still do.
About 2
Back
hours.
in Corn Farm. Yeah,
2 hours south.
I guess I've been in that area. Great.
So I'm bringing her. She's with me now. My dad passed away a few years ago, and she's come down. I brought brought her down here to visit with Louisiana folks. I know she's enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Vice President, remarks.
Very few. Should have been really said during the comments section. But we had another gentleman here that came in late, and we didn't allow him to speak, and so I better not allow you to do it either.
Okay.
That wouldn't really be right.
Okay, Commissioners, I know it's been longer. This is my last comment to you. It was Thursday, several of us met with Racer Trust. Racer Trust is the company that's holding the liquidation of the property at General Motors. President Epperson, Vice President Thibodeau, Ms. Baker, and Ms. Lynch, along with Kirk Foreman, and Mr. Grubb, and Randy, and I met with the Mr. Bruce Rasher and Ms. Pam Barnett from Racer Trust. We talked about developing a strategic plan to market the property. And this is a draft of a plan, and we had to do a lot of work on this plan, but we started the discussions. And certainly you all heard in the media that the General Motors decided that they are not going to continue their operation here past June of 2012. So we are now starting to position ourselves to make sure that there's something in that property that will be beneficial to the community. And this plan is just a start at that process. This will have to be refined and comment to add to this plan. So they asked us to look at it and give it back to them within a month. And there'll be more discussions as they go forward in trying to market the property. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me, sir, at this time.
All right. Do we have any communiques or committee reports from commission members?
I just got a comment about this.
Yes, report. Well, yeah, I saw Mr. Bowman point that out to me already. Yeah, we'll correct that, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Bowman, we will correct that, ma'am. Take Caddo Parish on that.
That's the first thing I noticed.
Yes, sir. It's an educational process for most people that are unaware.
All right, so no president's report. Old business?
No old business, sir.
New business?
New business. Ordinance number 5134 of 2011, declaring certain adjudicated properties to be surplus.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to speak on the motion. I move that we englobo items 02 through 05, as well as everything else on the appointments. Since we're shy of 4 people, they're going to want to talk a lot Thursday, and we'll just take the whole agenda and move it forward to Thursday.
Second. We got a motion for englobo by Mr. Escaday and second by several people. See no speakers. Cast your vote, please. Left, we have it.
Vote, sir.
Pardon?
There's only 6.
There
There's
we go.
7.
There's 7. Wouldn't work.
Thank you.
Where is it? Got it now. Okay, we got 7. That's 7-0. Mr. Pearson?
Move to adjourn.
All right.
That's your job, everybody.
Be ready.
We'll move them. I'm going to miss you.